Welcome to the Champs App podcast, where we help players and parents demystify the world of minor hockey development and recruiting for both girls and boys. On this episode, I talk with Katie Lachapelle, who is the head coach with the Holy Cross University women's hockey team, and she is also slated to be the head coach for the upcoming U.S. Under-18 Girls hockey team. We talk in detail about the Under-18 Girls team and what coaches look for when recruiting, and of course, the Holy Cross women's hockey program. I really enjoyed this conversation with Katie, and I hope you do too. Before we get to our guest, if you enjoyed this episode and want us to keep making more of them, please share it with teammates and friends. You can also subscribe, like, follow, and even better, it would be great if you would leave us a review. Now, let's drop the puck and get to the show. I'm very excited to have on the Champs App podcast, Katie Lachapelle, who is the head coach at the Holy Cross women's hockey program. Hailing from Lewiston, Maine, she attended Providence College as a dual sport athlete, playing both field hockey and ice hockey. She was co-captain of the hockey team in her senior year. After Providence, Katie has gone on to an illustrious coaching career with assistant coaching stops at Union College, Niagara University, The Ohio State University, Boston University, as well as she has been an assistant coach with the USA hockey program, 4 times with the Under-18 team, winning multiple gold medals, as well as twice with the Under-22s. For the last 4 years, she's been at Holy Cross, with the last 2 as the head coach. Welcome to the podcast, Katie. So excited to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Ray. I'm happy to be here and have a little chat this morning.
So let's start off with, as we do all our guests, your hockey history in Lewiston, Maine, and making your way into Providence.
Yeah, it was. I was lucky enough to grow up in Lewiston, Maine. Fantastic hockey town. A lot of great hockey memories growing up. Pretty much played boys hockey. Or I did play boys hockey all the way, from when I was 4 or 5, right through high school. I played on our boys high school hockey team. And then I think probably when I was about a freshman or maybe in 8th grade, a couple, my father and another gentleman, Mr. Roberts, his daughter actually, Julie, played at Norwich. They started a women's team, a girls team. So we were able to kind of play both there, play in high school and with the boys, and then also play on the girls team there. So a lot of great memories on the girls team and really great memories on the guys team. We won state championship my senior year. And some of those guys are my best friends still to this day.
So how did you become such a good hockey player? Was it because you played with boys? Was it your inner drive? Was it great coaching?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess, if you ask my parents, I just always liked playing sports. I was never really in the house. Always running around outside with we had a great neighborhood. We had a lot of little kids in our neighborhood, all the same age. So we had a lot of, whatever it was, kickball, running around, playing wiffle ball. We lived right near a baseball field, so we would go over to the baseball field. Back then, things didn't get locked up. You could just do whatever you want and run on those fields, and lots of ponds right in our area, in our neighborhood, that we would skate on in the winter too, which was nice. But I was actually really lucky. I was coached by my father. My dad was the Lewiston high school coach for a very long time, won a bunch of state championships as a coach when I was really little. So I was literally like in that high school boys locker room all the time, around high school, the high school guys all the time, and watching hockey and being coached by him. I still think he was my best coach I ever had. So I was pretty lucky. We did a lot of, I guess when I was younger, I didn't really think about the fact that I was the only girl playing. Maybe my dad shielded me. I'm sure there were some people saying some things, and I think maybe my parents shielded me a little bit, but from the kids, nobody cared, that I was a girl. I had some good size on them until probably about maybe my sophomore year. Then maybe some of them got a little bigger, but the checking and all that wasn't really that much of an issue until I got older in college. But again, I still was a pretty solid kid, so it wasn't too bad.
So these days they kind of say your parents shouldn't be your coach because they have an agenda and
Right.
they're pushing their kids too hard. Apparently it worked out pretty well for you.
Yeah, it was great. I think my dad was my coach, probably. My dad and a couple other, same coaches, kind of followed us through probably till about, I would say, Pee Wee year. I don't even know what that's called now. We had the
U12, U12.
okay.
Yeah.
So up until about then, my dad was always one of the coaches, and I don't know. I'm from a small town, so it didn't really seem to be an issue, and I think he had some clout since he it kind of had a big name in the hockey world in Lewiston with having been the high school coach for a while. And then he became a principal of the school, so he had to give up the coaching part. But nobody, to my face anyways, seemed to have a problem with it. But yeah, now it's different. It probably depends on where you're from too. What kind of coaches you have access to as well. But I was nice small town, and everybody knew everybody, and you just kind of went and played. And next year you might be on a different team. The year after you might be on a different team, and your coaches were your coaches.
Gotcha. So how did you end up getting recruited to Providence? I know you were playing multiple sports at the time, softball,
Yeah.
field hockey, ice hockey. So how did you end up at Providence?
Yeah, I think just from the women's team that I was on, going to the tournaments, we went to nationals, things like that. So it was different back then, and then also going to the USA hockey camps in the summer, district camps, and then through to the bigger camps. Back then, most of the camps were in either Lake Placid or St. Cloud. We going to St. Cloud for a long time for summer camps, and now as a coach. But I think just going to those and being watched at those camps, and then you start getting the letters. And I didn't really know much about the recruiting process. I wasn't from an area like the guys weren't getting a lot of that for D1s, and so it was really something that was super foreign to me. To be honest, I don't really remember much of it, but it was certainly pretty foreign to me, the recruiting process. It's like, oh, okay, like my parents say, all right, we're gonna go visit UNH, we're gonna go visit BC, we're gonna go to Brown, we're gonna go to Providence, and so it just kind of went on those visits. Not really. I think I was a little naive now that I'm talking here.
So how did you pick Providence of all the schools that you were looking at?
Yeah. I loved Coach Bardo, Jackie Bardo, who was a coach then, and it gave me the opportunity to also play field hockey. For some crazy reason, I loved field hockey too, even with all the running. So
Who's the field hockey coach?
Jackie was as well. Coach Bardo was as well. So I was fortunate to be able to play two sports in college. Again, like back then, I didn't think much of it, that you can't, it's really hard to play two sports. Nowadays, it's at the Division I level, because of how the seasons overlap, it's almost impossible, depending on which one you got more recruited for, if it was before or after season. So but I loved my visit, and I loved everything about Coach Bardo and the players that I met. And like I said, the opportunity to play both sports was something that I thought was pretty special. Even with all the running.
Yeah. And you got reunited with Coach Bardo a little bit later on. We'll get to that soon.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your hockey career at Providence. So were you a forward or a D?
I went in as a forward and ended up playing defense my first 2 years. And that was something a little different. I played defense a little bit before. I think my father was definitely big on making sure you play both positions growing up. So I wasn't super foreign, but we needed some people to drop back there. So I did. And so my first 2 years were at defense, and last 2 at forward.
Okay. And do you find that playing forward and D, did that help or hurt your hockey career?
I think it helped, probably, growing up. I think it's hard to do now. I think the skill sessions and things that people do in the summer are so specialized, sometimes to the position that you play, that it can leave you in one spot. So if you do some skills in the summer, making sure they're kind of both ends of it, is not a bad idea.
Yeah, and you during your career at Providence, you had an average of 0.84 points per game. So obviously, you're prolific at both ends of the rink when you're playing forward or D. What made you such an offensive powerhouse?
I think my sister would say that it's because I don't like to lose. I was probably just kind of had that attitude. Probably a little bit of a baby at times too when I was growing up at losing, or she wouldn't say that, but she still says it to me now. So I think just when I was growing up, my father owned hockey camps in the summer in Biddeford, Maine, and when I was younger, I was at those camps as a camper, for 3 weeks in the summer, and it's a different time now because we didn't have all those, or I didn't have all those extra trainers and extra skill coaches. So that was our time. You had your 3 weeks of hockey camp, and then at night I'm running out to an ASA softball game, and I'm coming back the next morning for hockey camp. And so you were running around, but I just did a lot of camps. And then as I got older, my dad was in the gentleman that worked camp. They kind of let me take over the younger kids group. So I actually became a coach of the younger kids group of the camp when I was still in probably like my senior year in high school, junior year in high school. So I think that probably led a little bit to the coaching as well. But I think doing those skills and then being able to teach those skills. I wish everybody who played hockey could coach. You see it so differently and then go back to play. But unfortunately, we start to get too old once we coach and going back to play. But I think that's a big thing. If you're younger and you can be in a camp, but maybe work some camps for some little kids. Now you got to explain, you got to articulate what skills you're doing and why you're doing them. And it makes you think a little bit more as well.
Gotcha. Well, actually, that leads wonderfully into the next question. So after Providence, you almost immediately went into coaching. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering why you decided not to try to pursue playing some more after college, and then why you chose, becoming an assistant coach right away after college.
Right. I guess if to be completely honest, I didn't really, I don't know, I didn't really think about playing too much after college. I always knew that I wanted to coach. I think it's a different kind of person that can continue on and have that drive every day. And I don't know, maybe I just didn't have that kind of drive, but I had that coaching, that coaching drive. And, that was part of it. I had a few injuries. I couldn't play field hockey my senior year because I had some hip injuries that had kept me out actually probably half a season of my junior year in hockey. So my senior, I decided not to play field hockey because it took away from the hockey part. So I don't know if I just really never, like I said, it takes a different kind of person. You've talked to some of those athletes, the things that they do day in and day out. And I think my passion was more in the coaching realm. And my mom was a coach too. They were both gym teachers, and then they moved into teachers, and then they both ended up being principals by the time they retired. But my mom was a big coach at a rival school from my dad, from field hockey and some other sports. And my mom actually played, sports at University of Illinois. So we always, tell my dad we got the athletics from my mom, not from him, a long time ago. But
you
yeah,
you got the coaching from your parents, the coaching kind of bug from your parents. Yeah.
For sure. Since I was little, I mean, I got pictures of me running around on the field hockey field at my mom's high school games, and I was probably like 4 or 5 years old. So that's really all I've ever known. Like I was either going to be a teacher, a school counselor, or a coach. And luckily, you can coach and have that be your profession. I literally graduated from college, and I think a day or two after I graduated, I had accepted a job at Union. So I went on a little trip with some of my college friends for about a week. And then I got back and I moved to Schenectady, New York, and started coaching pretty much right away.
Wow. Okay. So then walk us through, your multiple stops before you got to Holy Cross.
Yeah, I was a gentleman named Fred Quisgard was at Union. And at that point, the program was still Division III, and there was talks about moving it to Division I. And Fred was kind enough to hire me there. I'd known Fred for quite a while from my father's hockey camps. He used to work and be like a lead instructor at my dad's camp. So I think that's another thing is keeping the connections. And you never know who's watching. You never know who's paying attention to how you do things. So I was there for 2 years, and then I went to Niagara University. It's too bad they still don't have a program
Yeah, we've had a
we
couple
were,
of guests from Niagara University. So we've had Alison Coomey,
yeah, yeah,
who
yeah,
you're pretty familiar with. We'll get to her
yeah,
back in a second.
yeah.
And then we
I
also had
coached
Sarah
Allison.
Zacharias, who was there for after you were there, but
Yeah,
Alison was actually helped recruit her. So yeah, keep going. Sorry.
yeah. No, no, you're okay. Um, so I was there for 3 years, and I learned so much from Margot Page, who was a head coach at the time. She was an assistant coach. She had played on Team Canada. She was assistant coach with the Olympic team, and just to be able to learn a lot of just a lot of hockey stuff from her, and how to be a leader was awesome. And then Jackie Bardo was at Ohio State. And like I said, my fondness for Jackie and everything she's done for me. And so she called, and it was a pretty easy decision to go. It was really hard to leave Niagara. I loved it there. We had just played in a Frozen Four. I thought we had a pretty good team. But Jackie was the now at Ohio State, and she called up, and one of my best friends from college, Catherine Hansen, was the other assistant. So it was pretty easy decision. And I had a great time, great time there. I was there for 4 years. And then, Boston University had a team just for a couple years. And when I was growing up, they didn't have a team. Their men's did. And obviously that was a pretty darn good program.
Yeah.
And,
And you had some pretty good players come through while you were there.
yes,
Like
yes.
Marie-Philippe Poulin and a
Yes.
whole bunch of others. Yeah.
Yeah. We were pretty lucky. We had a pretty good teams, good runs for probably 5, 6, 7 years. And I think that move for me as I started just to get a little older. My whole family's back here. I've never known anything but New England. Growing up in Maine and going to school in Rhode Island, and so I think it was just for me. It was a little bit of getting back home and being able to see my family more. And so really lucky. I was there with Alison Coomey, who actually coached when I was at Niagara as well.
Yeah.
So it was great to be at BU for 9 years with Brian. Same with Brian. He's just a unbelievable guy.
Brian DeRoche, the head coach at Boston University.
In every facet, he's fantastic. So to be able to learn from him as well. I've been really lucky. Everywhere I've gone, the coaches that I've been able to work for, just I could write a book on how much I've learned from each one of them, and how lucky I am to have had those stops. I had a really good career path, just strictly for me learning. Forget the hockey part and the student athletes that I was able to be around. Just the coaches and the assistant coaches that I was able to be around and learn from, I think really molded me into who I am today. And then obviously at BU, we had some pretty darn good hockey players. You can learn a lot from hockey players, from your players too. And so it was fantastic. Some of the teams that we had come through there.
Great. And so we have our first mail in question from Alison Coomey, who asks, what was your most memorable recruiting trip?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I had, God, I wouldn't even know.
Montreal, does Montreal ring a bell?
Oh yes, we did have a great time in Montreal. It's always nice too when you go up to those kind of places, because you can try to connect with your former players. So that's always nice. And it's hard when you've had 20 years of it. And when I kind of think back, I think I'm still like 25, and I'm definitely not. So it's sometimes when you think back to those trips, it's a lot. But Allison and I had so many recruiting trips, but certainly that was a pretty good one.
So let's talk about then, during your illustrious coaching career, you also helped out with USA Hockey. And so how did you get involved with USA Hockey? And just tell us about some of your experiences traveling overseas for the under 18s and probably under 22s.
Yeah. I think I just, signed up to work the camps. And I think it took a couple years for me. There's so many coaches that are trying to get into work the development camps. And, I think after a couple years, I think maybe it was when I was at Ohio State was, I think, the first time that I was able to work those camps. And, just working those camps and getting to know as many people as you can. And I think the first time I worked under 18s, you know, Jeff Campersall and Courtney Kennedy that was the staff that was there, and they needed to add somebody to the staff. And I've known Courtney since we were in junior high, you know, playing against each other, and we're pretty good friends. And Jeff Campersall is someone I've always, you know, kind of looked up to. And
He's the head coach at Penn State currently. Was at Princeton? Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. And Courtney's at Boston College as the associate head coach there. And so I think I probably got lucky. They needed another coach, and there's probably some names thrown out. And you know, fortunately enough, I think they probably gave me their blessing to be on that staff. And you know, that was at that first year. You know, we got one silver. We were over in oh gosh, now I'm gonna forget. I think we were over in Budapest for that first tournament, if I remember correctly. I'm sorry, I do have a really bad memory, and it all blends together. I don't like looking at my bio, so I forget a lot of things. But that was, you know, a pretty awesome experience. The whole process, from the development camps straight through to some winter camps, straight through to picking a team. And that year, the Worlds were in April, I believe, because it was an Olympic year. And I could be off on that, but I'm pretty sure when it was an Olympic year, the Worlds used to get pushed back to April.
Yeah.
And they don't do that anymore. I don't think they're going to do that anymore. But so just to work with those two and see how they do things, and the whole process of USA Hockey. And Michelle Amidon was still there, and Reagan Carey had just come in, you know, taking over in that area for those couple years I was there. And then I think from there, I just, you know, Joel Johnson, you know, took over after that as the head coach. And, you know, Joel Johnson at Minnesota, and Joel's, kind of, in my opinion, you kind of call him my big brother. He's like a big brother to me, and he's kind of taking me under his wing over the last couple of years here. And when he moved up to U22s, I was lucky enough. I'd done the U18s for 4 years, you know, one with Jeff and Courtney, and then 3 with Joel and Brent Hill, Courtney, and Maura Crowell at Duluth, who, give them a shout out. They won their game last night. And I know BC plays today. So, and then it's a lot of time in the summer. You know, you don't really get much of a July or much of an August. And so I was gonna hopefully take a little bit of a break, but you never want to say no, right? Like, cause it's such an amazing opportunity, and you never know when you'll get one again. And then was fortunate enough to work with Joel and Courtney with 22s, and then also Joel and Bob Corkum, who's now the national team coach. 1 year, his first year kind of into the women's scene. So that was really fun getting to know Bob as well.
Gotcha. And so you were named to be the head coach of the under-18 team for last year. Unfortunately, everything because of COVID got canceled. And we spoke with Chelsea Walkland, and she's hoping again to be on your staff for this coming year. What's the plan for this year? Or is there going to be an under-18 team, and are you going to be the head coach?
You know, I think the plans are there, you know, for that. And I think, you know, I don't know when any announcements will come out or things like that. I think we're all just right now still working and continuing the work we did last year to help out, whichever direction that the USA Hockey staff goes, you know, for the staff. But we're still doing our best to help and go out and watch and see teams. And it's hard right now because a lot of it's on video, just like it is for college. Yep. So you're getting a lot of that, but we're going to be able to hit up a lot of the district camps in the next couple months, with also some USA Hockey scouts that are going to be hitting up those district camps. And I don't know, or I probably can't share all the exact ins and outs, but there are plans, you know, for us to be able to see as many things as we can. And whether it's by video or whether it's by you know, live, that's our plan.
Great. So let's look more then backwards then, since you've done
Yeah.
this so many times.
Yeah.
I'm a parent. I have a kid who's in the process right now, very early on, because it's just starting out at the either the state or the district level. So when do you start getting involved in the process of evaluating talent if you were the head coach for the under 18 team?
Yeah. I think on a typical year, it's really not until the camps, the actual development camps in the summer. I think the USA Hockey scouting staff and the USA Hockey development staff handle a lot of the districts, and the districts handle the districts. We don't really have say on who gets moved forward. I actually don't even know the ins and outs of all those details from the districts to the camps. But we'll go to the districts to watch for select camp that comes at the end of July. Usually it's the end of July.
Yep.
So we'll make sure that we're familiar with the players, but nobody from the U18 staff gets in the way of who gets selected to the district camps. And that's more so USA Hockey full-time staff and not the U18 staff.
Gotcha. And so I forget if it's called the 64s or the 66s or the 68s, but at some point, the top 60 something players end up in St. Cloud, and that's where you're at. So tell us what players should expect and how they should come prepared for those types of big weeks or weekends, depending on how many days they're going to be there for.
Yeah. I think that those camps. So it used to be over the 10, 15 years I've been doing these camps, it's changed. So, it used to be kind of a developmental camp, and then you hope you get some, once the U18 tournament started, you hope you get selected to move on. And now we have those development camps, the 15 camp, the 16, 17 camp, and then the select camp. And the select camp is definitely, I think it's a combo of both development, but it's we can call it kind of what it is. It's an evaluation camp for the next step. So obviously we're going to do some development, but we're going to play a lot of games because we need to see the players play a lot of games to be able to make decisions on who's going to make the next camp. And so, we want to see players, at all the development camps, come in ready to go. Making sure that you're doing your best to be in hockey shape when those camps come up, because that is a hard thing, because you're doing strength and conditioning sessions, you're on the ice in the morning, you're waking up early, you're really going all day. So you got to be prepared that way, so that on like day 2 or 3, you don't hit a wall, which I think the student or the athletes now do a great job of the cross training and the off ice training, where definitely, I know I'm old, but definitely when I was younger, that wasn't really a thing. You just played a ton of sports and you stayed in shape that way. But I know it's a lot harder now to play a ton of sports. You got to specialize at some point. So staying in shape that way. And then we just want to see players play at a high pace, make good decisions with the puck, possess a puck or make great plays to keep your team possessing the puck. And that's really what I see is a high compete level, and making sure everybody's playing smart. But I think it's the biggest thing at those camps is you got to have that high compete level.
Gotcha. So you touched on this before about, making sure you come into camp basically in great shape already. I did see in one of the pieces of information that USA Hockey puts out ahead of the camp, talking about the testing that goes on. It's basically very similar to the NHL Combine in terms of the measurements. I was wondering, how much do you weigh that stuff versus the actual on ice performance? There are some players who can smoke all the off ice, measurements and then get on the ice and be, and then there's also the vice versa. I mean, there's lots of examples of NHL players who don't do so great in the combine and are just an incredible hockey players. So how do you weigh the two?
I think you look at both at those camps, and probably as the further up you go, it's probably looked at more. The further you go, the older you get when you start getting with those national team camps and things like that. I think it's definitely looked at a little bit more in those areas than it would be at the development camp. I think the development camp is a good base. The 15 camp, the 16, 17 camp, it's a good base to now start tracking you and see how you improve each year. So you don't want to go down, you don't want to stay even, you want to show the improvement, show the fight that you have in you, to keep improving each year. So I would say, um, it's really important to measure and start measuring at that point. So also, so the athletes, the players have a baseline of where they're at and say, okay, and who's at the top? How do I compare to the top fit athletes at that camp? And can I get there? Can I keep moving myself up? So I think that's probably the most important part on those development camps. So yes, it is looked at, but probably way more so as you get older and as you get deeper into the process of those camps.
Gotcha.
Sure.
How do you measure character, right? How do you measure the intangibles of a player during this process?
Yeah, that's a tough question, but I think it's something we talk about a lot. Obviously, you always want to watch the body language and the way people conduct themselves. On the ice, off the ice. Do you say thank you to the people that are serving you your lunch? Little things like that. What type of person you're at? Like, there's so many coaches at those camps, and we're all watching. Do you go to throw something in the trash and you miss the trash, but you don't turn around and pick it up? Like little things like that. I know they sound silly and little, but it has nothing to do with hockey, but it has everything to do with hockey. And I think other things. How are you a teammate? Are you, if you feel like maybe you're not playing your best, do you sink in, or do you keep fighting through it? Do you keep tapping your teammates on the shin pads? How's your attitude on the ice, and how's your attitude off the ice with your teammates? That doesn't mean everybody has to be super vocal. Everybody has different levels of, some people are introverted, extroverted, those things, are what they are. But when you get to the ice and when you get on the ice and you're playing with your teammates, how are you supporting your teammates? How are you keeping your attitude up? And then away from the ice part, in the workouts and the lifts, are you trying to bring people into the group? Are you trying to meet new people? Like I said, there's a lot of us there as coaches, and we're in the dining hall. We're in all those places where we see how people conduct themselves. And so I think those areas can probably hurt you more than if depending on which way you go. But there's never really any problems at those camps. Everybody that's at those camps, all those athletes, they want to be there for a reason and they want to work hard. And but I think being a great teammate is a huge piece to it. And we certainly do look at that, because as you go higher up, that becomes more and more important. You're used to being the best player on your team, but as you go higher up, you might not be. And so how do you handle that? How do you adjust your role? How do you handle that pressure? And that happens at these camps as well. You're the best player from your district, and now you've got to come to camp. So how are you mentally prepared to adjust if you're maybe not the best player on the team, or maybe you always play center and you got to play wing? Do you pout, or show bad body language, or do you just say, okay, ask some questions, okay, I'm ready to go, ask questions when you have questions about it, work your hardest, and be a great teammate, and go from there.
Wow. Okay. Well, you covered a whole bunch of stuff there, which probably answers my next question, which was, what advice do you have for players or parents who are just starting the process? Because there's a lot of us out there who are especially after last year's USA hockey related stuff all got canceled, who are just going through it for the first time.
Yeah, I think it was really tough. With everything getting canceled last year. There's a whole age group of players that really missed out. But I guess everywhere in the world there's a lot of missing out, and there's a lot bigger things going on than hockey. But as this process comes back around right now, I just think you just got to be ready to play your hardest and play your best, and you've got to kind of get over the nerves when you're at camp. It's really hard. Some of these, and it's not lost on us as coaches, especially at the 15-year-old age. Some of these players have never been away from home, or stayed away from home without their parents for a week. And that's really hard. And so if you can come in with the right mindset and say, okay, I'm gonna try to meet some new people that I don't know. If I'm gonna try to do this, I'm gonna, promise myself that I'm gonna have the best time that I can have, and have the best effort, or give the best effort that I can. It'll be a little easier for you. But for sure, we understand a lot of people maybe haven't been away from home, and so it gets you the nerves a little bit. So how can you offset that? Okay, just play a really good hockey, play the best you can, and to play the best you can, you can't be nervous, you can't be a little who knows, you got to be ready to go. And I think that's a big thing with coming in these camps, is sometimes the nerves get you, and that's your week to show a group of staff, and a group of evaluators really what you can do. So I think that the most calm way you can come in, or the least nervous you can come in, is the best. And the best way to do that is be ready to go. Be ready to play. Make sure you're in pretty good shape, in hockey shape. So when you get there, you're not feeling tired, because you start feeling tired, or all those things happen, and sometimes you can get a little bit more quiet, or maybe not play the way that you want to play. And if you don't play the way you want to play one day, you got to forget about it, and think about what you want to change for the next day, and then move on to the next day, because it's only a certain number of days, 6-7 days, that you're there, to really show your best. And so I don't know if that was a question, or if that's what you were looking for.
That's perfect.
But same thing when you go to the district tryouts, like you got to go there, and you can't worry about much, and you got to really be able to get over mistakes pretty quickly. I was at the Ted Lasso show there. He's like, be a goldfish. You don't always want to be a goldfish, but sometimes it's not a bad thing to be a goldfish. At some of these, these tryouts, when there's such a short period of time, and you're trying to do your best, and just moving on from mistakes, learning from them quickly.
That's perfect. Well, that's some excellent advice from someone who's been there many times. So
I don't know if it's right, but
let's so thank you for all this USA hockey information. Now let's move back to Holy Cross. So I know I saw a couple of interviews with you from while you were at Boston University, that you had always wanted to be a head coach. So to talk about the transition to Holy Cross, starting out as an assistant, and then move to Division I while you're there.
Yeah. So that was it was really hard. I loved working with Brian Grosher and Allison Kumi. Like I said, Allison's one of my best friends, and so there's a coaching piece, and there's what you want in your goals, but there's also when you have a pretty good thing going, and you have great people that you work with, it is hard to move. But when Holy Cross had announced that they were going to be going to Division I after a year, and they were essentially looking for the person to come in as the associate head coach, but to take over the program. I love Hockey East. It's fantastic. I love coaching in Hockey East. And that's something I always wanted to stay in Hockey East. And the opportunity came up, and, I think I'm a small school person. As much as I loved BU in the city, it's probably not my thing. And so just looking at the campus and looking at the education that's offered here, it was kind of a no-brainer for me to at least apply and, see what happened. And fortunately, I got the job. And, Peter Van Buskirk was here when I got here. That guy's a legend. He's been doing this for so long. He's been at Holy Cross. He was at Holy Cross forever, both on the men's side and the women's side. So to be able to come in here for the first year, we were still in the Division, 2/3, league in the that league. To be able to just come in and have him here, and I could literally I was recruiting all the time. My first 2 years when he was still here, more so my first year, just going out, because that was back then you could still, recruit 8th graders. And so the race was on, and a lot of players had already committed at places. So, I was out there, gone probably every weekend, just, on the road, trying to keep building our team forward and moving our team forward for that next level. And then that second year, Peter and I had a conversation, and, we kind of I would say maybe shared duties, or, you know, kind of stayed more and got more into the hockey piece of it, as we were now in Division 1, and starting to implement a couple things that we knew I was going to implement, you know, after, from a hockey playing standpoint, and just to learn everything about the school from him. He's awesome. You can't find one person that doesn't love Peter. Not just loves him, you know, and all his former players. So it was really nice to be able to you know, be with him there. And then right when season ended, after that second year, he retired, and we were ready to go. You know, had to do some hiring, and you know, fortunately, yeah, known Meredith Roth a really long time. And I kind of took a shot in the dark, you know, to see if she'd want to come back up, you know, the Division 1 level, and come help me build this program. And fortunately, she said yes.
And so I got a couple questions. So
Yeah.
when we had Cara Moria on the podcast, we talked about how her staff was all female. And, you know, I did some analysis. So the stats are 1 out of every 3 coaches in Division 1, the head coach is female, and 2 out of 3 are, as an assistant coach, are female. But yours is 100% on both sides. So
those numbers are higher than I thought. I thought those numbers were a little lower. So,
but I'm assuming this is intentional. Did you intentionally make sure you had an all-female staff?
No, I think I just, you know, we had a lot of applicants, you know, for Meredith's position. For Meredith's position, I knew who I wanted. And I think that's how it works a lot of the times. And I knew someone that could come in here and really take over the recruiting from what I had been doing. And also from the hockey standpoint, really help she works with our D, and I think she's one of the best D coaches in the country. Male or female, she's fantastic. So I knew that she would come in and help us in that area, you know, kind of the areas that I felt like, you know, she could cover better than I could, especially, you know, now moving into that head coach role. And then Maddie Norton was here when I first got here, and she did a great job, and especially with the transition from Division 3 to Division 3 to Division 1, learning all the recruiting. And Maddie actually last year, when season ended, she wanted to go become a nurse.
Wow.
So we left, yeah, pretty admirable. And when she said that, I was like, that's perfect for you. She was a great person, caring, and really level-headed. So and then our job opened up, and we had a lot of good candidates, and I talked with a lot of people, and I think Devin just really stood out to me, you know, just in the conversations. And so I don't know that it's intentional, more so who I felt would best complement our players in our staff. And not to say that the gender, there was certainly, you know, males that could have done the same thing, but I thought Devin, you know, best, and she's young, you know, but I felt I felt like she would be great here, because Meredith and I have a lot of experience. And so, you know, we felt pretty comfortable, and the players absolutely love her. They love Meredith. You know, and I think that's what really was looking for when building our staff. Okay, who do I think will really connect with our players? Obviously, as a staff, you want to, you know, you got to make sure it's somebody you want to be around all the time, and because you're with each other all the time. And she just had a great demeanor about her that we just kind of clicked. And I said to Mary, I go, you gotta talk to her. You know, I did all the interviews. I said, I want you to talk to these couple coaches here. And I kind of kept my mouth shut. And then after she talked, she said, you know, kind of had an order. And I said, that's great, because that's exactly how I felt about Devin as well. So.
And how do you divide responsibilities between the 3 of you, both on ice and as well as, you know, off ice, recruiting, training and development, those kind of things?
Yeah. So, you know, we kind of eased Devin into it a little bit. Meredith, you know, hey, she's heads our recruiting. She works with our D, and she works with our penalty kill. And the little things, we do have a director of ops as well, and that position changed 2 years ago. So I think some of the job descriptions that maybe the previous director of ops had, when Nick actually just took a job with the Providence Bruins. He's now their video coach. But I think the job description, some of the smaller stuff, which ends up being the stuff that's always affecting the players, the meals, the travel.
Yeah.
Our director of ops took a lot of that over, and some video stuff. But yeah, in I think with Devin, I just say, hey, you're gonna do the forwards, but we're gonna, just her and I had a lot of conversations, and those first couple games kind of helped her out, and I'm sitting here thinking, I don't need to help her, she's fine. She does a lot of studying. She's really sharp. Meredith's been a great mentor for her as well. I don't have as much time as I wish I did. I think sometimes to spend, particularly with her. And so I'm really fortunate that I have Meredith here that can really take her under her wing as well. And she's got her up to speed on all the recruiting and all those things. And so like I said, I think we just got really lucky with our staff and the experience that Meredith had. And then I think Devin's just really sharp.
Gotcha. Then what do you like behind the bench during a game? Are you animated or reserved?
I don't think I don't think I'm much of a yeller, but I don't know if the team would agree with that. I try to stay, especially this year, I try to stay as positive as possible. I don't yell at the refs barely ever. I think I probably did more so a little bit this year than I don't think last year I said one word, because they're making calls and they're doing their best just like everybody else. And they're not going to change anything. So I'm not much of a yeller in that right. I think we try to, as a group, we're not yelling at our kids much. We try to get them on game days, especially, to feel as comfortable as they can, when they're out there playing. And I think during the week is more so during the practices, the time that, hey, we're more demanding. Hey, this is something we need to pick this up a little bit, or hey, great job. But I do think we try to be as positive as we can. Like I said, this year was different. Everything that came out of our mouths was positive. It had to be. What everybody's going through in the world, and the luck that we just had that we were able to play hockey, despite everything that was going on, was definitely not lost on our staff or our players. But it was really hard. So, it's a lot of patty positive, and, but I would say I'm not much of a screamer or yeller. I'm a little bit more on the, maybe the quiet side of it, and just, demanding what we need to demand. And our group knows we have a lot to improve on, and a long way to go to move up the ladder here in our league. And so we're not happy with every season. We had some good wins, or, last year we moved up a spot and we stayed in that spot this year, but that doesn't make us happy. We have a drive, we're glad that we're improving, but we're still not there. And they know that, and it's definitely, the conversations are there from our staff to the team, and our team, they want that. They want that pressure as well.
How do you manage that, the development? Because, you're still only second year as head coach, so it's,
Right.
you still got a year or two where it's completely your team that you've recruited. How do you make the trade-off of development versus winning, during this transition period of getting, all of your own recruits?
Yeah, it's been hard, but we're trying to find those things that we're going to measure our success on. I think one of the big things is just some of the culture things. Just, I think the change of the move up is just a lot more demanding at times. The season's longer, and I think maybe what our expectations are in the weight room. Some of those things are just a little different, and not to say that division 3 is just as demanding. I just think our season's longer. So I think that, maybe is the biggest thing to say. It's just a longer season. And as soon as they get to campus, they're with us. Where before it was maybe like a month or so. And then when season ended, they were in the weight room, but not maybe twice a week, because they weren't playing other sports here, but it was just a different. And so now everything's ramped up. We put a heavy emphasis on their nutrition. how they take care of themselves. Or, if someone's not running in from class, we want kids to warm up before practice, cool down after practice. So I think their hours per week at the rink definitely went up. Our players certainly met the challenge, loved it, and want to be part of history, want to be part of building this program and moving us, up the ladder, and taking steps every year. But yeah, it's a balance. I think it's a balance for both. It's a balance for the players. Like, most players that are playing Division I hockey, they all come from teams that win, or were winning when they were younger. So they get here and, I had a fortunate, a time at BU, we won a lot of games. So this was a little bit of a kick, I think, for me too. So just constantly keeping it in the perspective and looking where you want to be in a few years, and how do we do that every day? How do we kind of get that 1% better every day that keeps building us, forward? But it's certainly hard at times. But I think that's what fuels them and makes them work harder. Our team never quits. Doesn't matter what the score is. They're always, going their hardest and trying their hardest. And, one big thing I think that we've seen a change and that we need to keep growing on is just the vocalness of the players and them owning, maybe the locker room a little bit more and things like that, and holding each other accountable a little bit more. So it's not always coming from the coaching staff. And so I think just a lot of those changes that we certainly talk about, but our biggest value is being a great teammate. And I think that's something that we certainly have. Our group cares so much about each other and how well this program does. Yeah. That's a great place to start to keep getting better.
So, and you had a couple of big bright spots this year. So first of all, you participated in the playoffs for the first time. So that was a nice step in the journey, as well as, your top 2 point getters this season were freshmen, Millie Serum and Bryn Sarella, if I pronounce it properly.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, so obviously, they have bright futures, and obviously the team's going to see the benefit of them and incoming classes as you go. I was wondering, did working with USA Hockey actually help with their recruiting them to Holy Cross?
I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt. It certainly doesn't hurt when you're able to work at that level and have that on your resume. But I think our school, just the academic piece of our school as well, certainly, helps out. But yeah, I think part of it too, Meredith and I have been around a long time. And so we know a lot of coaches, and, hopefully there's good things that people can say, hey, what about this school? What about those coaches? I think we just know a lot of people too. So sometimes that I think helps a little bit. And Millie's actually Norwegian. So, seeing her a little bit on those circuits and some stuff with her national team, and Bryn, Bryn's come in and done a great job. We were lucky to have both of them and really that whole class coming in.
Gotcha. And so one last question about Holy Cross. So when the original plan was for you to coach the under 18s and head over to Europe, what was the plan for the Holy Cross team while you were away? Like, what was going to happen, while you were, busy with USA Hockey?
Yeah, Meredith and Devin take over, and it's usually about 2 weeks that you're gone. And I think the way it would have worked in our original schedule before COVID, I would have missed 3 games. So it's something that's new as an assistant. When I was at BU and missing, it wasn't as, I didn't think about it as much, but now as a head coach, I had to think about, really saying yes to doing it because of that. But, I talked about Meredith already, 0 reservations on not being there. I don't need to be there ever, really. They can kind of run the ship. So, with Meredith there, I didn't have any reservations of going, and our girls are great. Our players are great. So, her and Devin will be just fine if I'm gone this year.
Gotcha. All right. So just a couple more quick questions on the recruiting side of things.
Yeah.
one question that I'm sure all parents and players want to know is, what is it that you look for when you're recruiting, generally speaking?
I think all of us, pretty much look for the same thing. Just a high level of compete level. You can play at a high pace. Obviously you got to be a good teammate, and you can't always tell if you're a great teammate, but you can tell if maybe you're bordering on the other end of it. So I think making sure your body language is really good, and you take care of that part of it. But the work ethic, I think the high compete factor you have to have at the next level. Every time you step up a level, you have to compete all the time. You can't take any parts of your shifts off, because as soon as you get to college, you take a little part of your shift off, you're gonna be in trouble.
That's in the back of your net.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to remember, you get to the next level and you're competing against players that are 4 or 5 years older than you, that have been in the college training, in the weight room, and all those things for that many years. So you got to be ready to go then. But so I just think that high compete level, and you got to be able to skate pretty well, and possess the puck, and hockey IQ is another big thing that we look for. What kind of plays that you can make, what do you do off the puck, how do you support your teammates off the puck. But I'm sure that's probably what you heard from all the others too. So
well, everyone has their take, and it's actually pretty interesting to hear different angles from it, because there's a lot of different ways to approach that question. So and then what advice would you have for players who are now just entering the recruiting process, especially with all the blackout periods and the delays in getting this thing started with the new recruiting classes?
It just it's really hard right now. We know that just because of the way COVID went, and now colleges can keep players back, or move players different years. So I think just keep competing, only do things that you think are safe to do. I think that's another big thing right now. I know there's probably some pressure to feel like you need to go everywhere, but as coaches, like, we can't go out recruiting anyways, at least till the end of May. We'll see what happens after that, if it lightens up, or maybe a few things will change. No clue where that's going to go. But I think just doing your best to get out there, and when you can, when you feel good about it. And we're all watching tapes and videos, and that's become our life. I got 3 screens up, and you're just watching a lot of video, and everybody's probably in their home office, now doing those things. So, I think just keep a positive attitude as you can. Reach out to coaches, have your coaches read out the coaches. Obviously there's the age group that we're only allowed to speak with juniors and seniors right now. So I think knowing the rules as well, if a coach isn't getting back to you, it could be just because you're younger, and they can't. So I think that's important too. But I think a healthy, there's a healthy level of how much, you turn in, or video you send to coaches. And like I said, we're all trying to do the same thing right now and watch as best we can. So try not to get too discouraged, especially with everything that's going on right now. If it was a different year, it might be different advice. But I think, with everything with the pandemic, being safe, doing what you can. And I think there's a big piece. This is a good chance. We might not be able to play a lot of hockey right now, so this is a good chance for you to work on some of those other things. Can you work on your mental skills? Can you read some books? Can you, there's a lot of people who are doing free seminars and free learning right now, just on the mental skills part of it. So what can you work on since you can't be on the ice? Can you make sure you're doing all your off ice training as best you can? Can you do some extra if you have the time? And like I said, nobody works on mental skills that much, I feel like, when we're younger, and then we get to college, and then you're expected to be able to take everything, so I think if you can work on some of those mental skills now when you have that time, learn another language, I don't know, like when school's over, right? Like, I know everybody's in school right now, but that doesn't help you. Well, it might help you with the hockey part, because you might have some teammates from some other countries when you're older. But I think that's obviously the hockey part and staying in shape and training, but I think if you can add in some mental skills parts right now, if you can't play as much hockey as you want, is a really good idea. We always try to do it at our level. So.
Nice. And all right, last question. How can folks connect with you guys? How can they learn more about the program? Are you having camps coming up? Social media?
Yeah,
Anything?
yeah. So we've got all the social media. If you just go to our websites and Holy Cross website, and we have our athletic page as well, and then we have our sport pages for Instagram, and I'm not big into the social media, but we have people who do that, and then some of our staff are pretty good at that. So with Twitter and Instagram, and just follow along. We try to put as much stuff out there as we can. I think a lot of that this year as well was for our current parents, because they couldn't come to any games. So we tried to, our staff try to put as much stuff out there as we can. So our parents and our alum could stay connected as best they can during this year. But I think that's the best way. And just knowing the recruiting rules on reaching out to us, if you're of age, if you're not of age, knowing that we can't get back to you and things like that.
And I'm assuming you have a questionnaire on the team website.
Yep. There's a questionnaire on the website. Yeah, we actually we don't have ice in the summer until August. We actually have some construction going on right now with our chillers. So we currently don't have a camp because of that, because we're not sure how the construction is going to go. So that we were kind of holding off on that, but we're hoping in the year after we start something in August. Just a little camp or clinic.
And I'm assuming you and your staff, if things open up, you'll be attending tournaments or showcases over the spring and summer, after the blackout period. So
yes, for sure. Yeah, we'll be out there as best we can at as many camps and clinics. We've all had enough time inside our houses, right now. So I think we're anxious when we can safely get out there and work camps, and we'll see what happens in the next couple months here, and certainly make sure we're getting out there as much as we can. That's Perfect. Our plan. We've already got our schedules going, and I know a lot of different tournaments are probably, depending on what happens, a lot of different tournaments might pop up. So we're ready. Our staff's ready to go. We know that June, July, and August are probably going to be pretty busy for us, just trying to catch up to being on the road.
Yeah, perfect. Well, Katie, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Champs App podcast. It was great to hear about your coaching journey, your time with USA Hockey, and of course, everything about Holy Cross and your team and your staff. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Thanks for having me.
I really want to thank Katie for coming on the podcast. It was great to hear her insights about the under-18 team, and she also had some great advice for players and parents on the various recruiting processes. And remember, if you got something out of today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like, follow, subscribe, and even better if you could leave us a review so we can keep sharing this important hockey information with folks just like you.